The saxophone was invented in the mid-1800s by Adolphe Sax, the son of Belgium's chief instrument maker. With the saxophone, Sax blended the power of a brass horn with the nuances of a woodwind instrument. This instrument has the ability to sound bright and edgy, or dark and moody. Even though it's made of brass or high copper alloys, the saxophone is technically a woodwind instrument. That's because it produces sound by vibrating a reed attached to the mouthpiece. The process of making a saxophone starts with a long brass or copper sheet. A hydraulic punch cuts the metal into rectangles. After tracing a flared pattern onto one piece of metal, a craftsman aligns the pattern with a punch to cut out the part. This part will now be formed into the saxophone's bell. The worker folds it around a metal rod and pounds it with a wooden stick to do some initial shaping. This takes the part from flat to three-dimensional. After the seam has been welded, more hammering rounds the shape substantially and improves on the flare at the end. Next, the craftsman repeatedly pounds the flare to form it into a bell. Hand hammering shapes the metal and also alters the physical properties to make the sound more resonant. Throughout the forming of the instrument, it is heated with a torch. This makes the metal flexible enough to be shaped. Next, he slides the bell onto a form. He brushes lubricant onto the metal and lowers a roller. The form spins the curved bell against the roller, which smooths out dents and forces the bell to conform to the dimensions of the roller. The rolled saxophone bell is the one on the right. It's dramatically different. Now we can see the saxophone's body take shape. It starts with this piece of metal that's wider at one end. The operator places it under a cone-shaped form. Using hydraulics, it descends to fold the part and imprint the cone shape on the metal. After more forming, another worker welds the seams to complete the cone. This part of the instrument is also called the tube. Meanwhile, the forming work on the saxophone bell has been completed. A worker locks the upper part of the bell into a machine and turns a punch device to cut the tone holes. Sound waves will be emitted through both the open tone holes and the bell's flare. Later, another worker aims a torch at the saxophone body to soften the metal so that the rims of the tone holes can now be formed. He slides the body onto a steel mandrel with round inserts. He aligns the tone holes with holes on the mandrel. He sets a guide rack on top, aligning the holes in the rack with the holes in the instrument. He inserts tools through the holes and threads them into the round inserts in the mandrel. A support bracket props up the tools. Using the tools, he pulls the inserts through the holes. This forms a rim around each hole. The raised edging will allow key cups to close the tone holes effectively. The craftsman drills the rims to smooth and level them. This will prevent gaps that could affect the sound of the instrument when the key cups close. The next part is the bow, which will link the saxophone bell and body. The craftsman brushes a cleaning agent known as flux onto one end. He connects the two parts and applies more flux to the bell where it meets the bow. He then melts solder where the two parts come together, completing this critical connection. The solder makes the joint airtight. He turns over the bell and bow assembly to complete the job, ensuring that the solder encompasses the entire joint. He dabs water onto the soldered joint to cool it down. But before this saxophone is ready to make music, a few more steps must be taken for good measure. The saxophone has tonal qualities similar to those of the human voice. Its sound can range from sultry, dark tones to high-pitched exuberance. It's no wonder the saxophone has found a place in many music styles, from jazz to pop to the classics. The standard saxophone has 23 different tone holes and an equal number of key cups to close them. At this factory, each key cup is assembled by hand. A craftsman arranges the parts of a key cup in a fixture to position them for soldering. He inserts a rod that will act as an alignment and positioning tool. He applies flux to clean the part and melts silver solder into the connecting points. To prevent the parts from sliding, the craftsman uses pincers to adjust their position. Other keys are grouped together on a brass plate known as a rib. He spaces the key posts evenly on a rod that serves as an alignment tool. Several overhead clamps hold the posts in place on the rib. He applies the chemical cleaner to the base of the posts and the plate around them. Silver solder is melted around the posts, and as it solidifies, it fuses them to the plate. Next, the craftsman removes the overhead clamp system. After sliding keys onto the ends of the alignment rod, he positions the assembly on the saxophone body. He closes the keys onto the corresponding tone holes and solders the base plate to the lower part of the saxophone body. He brushes water onto the solder to accelerate the cooling and solidification. He then removes the alignment rod and uncaps the tone holes for now. A cleaning agent is brushed onto the back of a rib that supports a second grouping of key posts. He solders the rib to the upper part of the saxophone body and takes the alignment rod off. The posts have been installed in a specific sequence to support extending keys on a hinge rod. Later, another worker polishes the bow and bell assembly against a buffing wheel, which polishes the instrument to remove smudges or fingerprints and give the brass parts a mirror finish. They dip the brass saxophone parts in a bath, where sound waves help remove residual dirt and grease. There's also a chemical primer in the bath that will help a lacquer bond to the brass. A technician sprays the lacquer onto the brass to protect it from corrosion and tarnish. Floral artwork will add visual flair to this copper saxophone bell. The copper has been painted black to make the art stand out. The artist follows the stencil with an etching tool, rotating it using a twirling motion technique, etching in fluid movements. He doesn't stop until he's completed a line to prevent any inconsistencies in the engraving. After he completes the pattern, he does detail work. This exposes the copper metal and makes the art pop. Returning to the brass saxophone now, a technician screws long hinge rods to the posts. He attaches the keys, which have been equipped with pads in the cups. A tiny screw secures this grouping of keys. He turns the saxophone over, inserts a light, and looks for escaping rays, making adjustments if needed. He installs needle springs under the key rods and main hinge rod. They'll enable the keys to spring back after they're pressed. He tests the spring action and again checks for light leaks. He now fits the bell bow to the main body. There's a connecting ring that holds them together, but he'll also lock them in place with a screw. From start to finish, it takes about a month to craft this saxophone. Whether it's made out of basic brass or something a little showier, the look of the instrument can reflect the saxophonist's playing style, but the tone of the instrument defines it.